Welcome back to the Bob Harden Show. And now here's your host, Bob Harden.
Thanks so much for joining us here on the show. I want to just reinforce the message from the Collier Senior Center. So important as people are starting to leave the snowbirds here on the Paradise Coast. There are a lot of lonely folks, especially as they age. And Collier Senior Center is a great resource for just a number of reasons. So I hope if you know somebody who's in that situation, who's lonely, who's being left alone, introduce them to the Collier Senior Center. It's a great organization. Coming up, we're going to visit with Seton Motley, the founder and president of Less Government. Right now we have with us Keith Flaugh. Keith is the co-founder of the Florida Citizens Alliance. Keith, thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Bob. Happy to be with you.
Thank you, Keith. Tell us about the Florida Citizens Alliance.
The Florida Citizens Alliance is a coalition of well over 100 groups now and over 110,000 people across the state of Florida. And we focus exclusively on K through 12 education. To us, that means championing homeschooling, champion the various vouchers that we have in Florida, fighting critical race theory, fighting the pornography that's in our schools. So we get involved in all those kinds of issues, spend a fair amount of time up in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
Just because it's fun, no pun intended. But we've become a respected resource for a lot of parents across the state.
Well, I'll say so, and I would say the proof of the pudding's in the tasting. You've had major influence on everything from Common Core to with the Commissioner of Education, the Governor's Office, the state legislature. Just really applaud the results of your efforts from the Florida Citizens Alliance. I mentioned the website is goflca.com, goflca.com. Well, and just proof of the pudding again, the Florida Department of Education has banned, I think it was 54 books or 47 books that are being used in grades, I think about K through 5 or 7 or something like that. Any update on that?
Yeah, every year the Department of Education has a process by which, for different subject matters, and this year it happens to be math. So they go through a process where they go out to all the big publishers and invite them to bid against both our standards and basically against our standards. Mm-hmm. And so last Friday, they announced that they were not going to approve. So they rejected 47 books from a number of different publishers based on the fact that they contained social emotional learning, critical race theory, and unacceptable content relative to the best standards. So that has a profound impact across the state. A lot of school districts, and that includes Collier County, we're in the process of adopting a bunch of those books. And so now I just heard last night that Broward had to stop their adoption process. We're trying to figure out what Collier County is going to do. Back on March 8th, they tried to adopt them, and their process was screwy, so they had to redo it on March 29th. And they adopted a bunch of math books and some ELA grades 6 through 12 books. It turns out that of the 13 math books that they adopted back on March 29th, 5 of them are on the list, the rejection list from the Department of Education.
See, that's so surprising because you read the Naples Daily News and it's good news. None of the books on the list from the state that are prohibited are being used in Collier and Lee counties. I mean, what's going on with that?
Well, I mean, I would expect the Naples Daily News to have to print a retraction. Part of the adoption from Collier County was McGraw-Hill grades 1 through 5 math, and they're all 5 grades were rejected by the Department of Education. Example, a number of books by Savas, which used to be, and your listeners may remember a company called Pearson International.
Sure.
They took on, they were very involved in Common Core, and they took so much heat, they decided about a year and a half ago to change their name to Savas. So it's the same company with a different name. and they were also, a number of their books were on the list. So we're waiting for some guidance from the Collier County School District. When they approved that list back on March 29th, it gave residents 30 days to review those books and raise any objections. And we have at least 9 or 10 volunteers who are in the process of reading those materials and documenting any objections. And our objections are due by the 28th of April, which is just around the corner next week. And so we're trying to figure out what they're going to do. My guess is they'll continue forward with the ELA books, and I can come back to that because that's what I'm reviewing. But that they will probably have to restart their process on the math. We'll see. We've had some dialogue with Jen Mitchell, and who's the chairwoman of the school board, and she's indicated that the school board will not try to adopt books that are on the rejection list. But we don't have any official guidance, so that's where we are.
Yeah, so I mean, it would be foolhardy, wouldn't it, be on the part of the school board to keep the books that have been rejected by the Department of Education in the state of Florida? So it seems to me that should lighten your load in terms of. And by the way, how could a math book be rejected because of content? It just makes no sense.
Yeah, I hear all the time from parents, how can they screw up math? But it's so easy for them to do so because, and I think I shared an example with you a couple of weeks ago. What they're doing is in the math problems, they're stating the problems with content that pushes social emotional learning and equity, diversion, inclusion, race. And so when you think about how they do that, and one of the examples I used on your show earlier is students asked to solve a problem. If you have 5 black kids in a class, 9 Hispanics and 13 whites, what's the percentage of minorities in the class? Well, that's a racist question. It's dividing. It's divisive.
Yeah.
And so those types of
how many should apologize for their existence?
Yeah. So that's the way they're doing it, and these companies are woke. Every one of them are woke. The question is whether or not they will try to clean up their content to satisfy the new best standards. Personally, I don't think they can. It's part of their DNA.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of a fool's errand on the part of anyone to think that these woke publishers are ever going to clean up their act. But I guess time will tell. But
well, I mean,
they got education have certainly gone after them. So I'm delighted to see that.
Well, I mean, sooner or later, the publishers are going to have to decide if they want to make money or not, because if they continue to have the content rejected, that means lots of material has to be thrown out and they have to start over again. I mean, this is what's happening to Disney right now. My goodness, as Donald Trump said, everything that's woke turns to crap. He used a different word, but it's just refreshing to see now how the worm is turning, so to speak.
Yeah, I just saw this morning that the Florida legislature's in special session over the redistricting, but they've also, the governor's expanded their mission. And yesterday, the Senate, which is the more liberal of the two bodies, voted to revoke some of the special tax status for Disney, and it's expected to go to the House today, which is much more conservative aligned. So with the Senate passing that, I would expect the House to do that today. So that's an example of how these woke companies, just lost their soul. I don't know how else to say.
Yeah, well, who would take their kid to Disney if they're concerned? My goodness, talk about smearing your own brand. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Keith, I just genuinely appreciate your commentary here on the show. Not only your commentary, though, but also your hard work here in Florida to improve public education. Just genuinely appreciate everything that you're doing. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bob. Have a great week.
You as well. Thank you. All right, coming up, we're going to visit with Michael Cannon. He is Director of Health Policy Studies at the Cato Institute. That and more right here on The Bob Harden Show on the Bob Harden Broadcasting Network.
Stay tuned for more of the Bob Harden Show here on the Bob Harden Broadcasting Network.